The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles has a dark and troubled history, but perhaps no story is as bizarre and unsettling as the disappearance of Eliza Lam. In January 2013, the 21-year-old Canadian student checked into the hotel while on a solo trip across the west coast of the United States. She was bright, adventurous, and kept in daily contact with her family back home. But on January 31st, that contact suddenly stopped. Elisa vanished without a trace. Her parents immediately reported her missing, and the Los Angeles Police Department launched an investigation. They searched her hotel room and the surrounding area, but found nothing. Her belongings, including her wallet and phone, were still in her room. It was as if she had simply evaporated. The hotel staff couldn't recall seeing her leave, and the initial search of the building, including the rooftop, turned up no clues. The case was going cold, and the mystery was just beginning. Desperate for leads, the LAPD released the last known footage of Eliza. It was a grainy elevator surveillance video, and what it showed was deeply disturbing. The 4-minute clip quickly went viral, capturing the world's attention and sparking countless theories. In the video, Eliza enters the elevator and presses multiple buttons. The doors, however, don't close. She then peers out into the hallway, cautiously looking both ways, before quickly retreating back into the corner of the elevator, as if hiding from someone. Her movements become increasingly erratic. She steps in and out of the elevator, sometimes peeking around the corner, other times gesturing with her hands in a strange, almost conversational way, though no one else is visible. At one point, she stands just outside the open elevator doors, her fingers interlaced in a peculiar manner before walking away down the hall. A few moments later, the elevator doors finally close, open again, close, and then proceed to another floor, all while empty. The footage was baffling. Was she playing a game? Was she having a psychotic episode? Or was she trying to escape from an unseen pursuer? The video ignited a firestorm of speculation online. Amateur detectives and internet sleuths dissected every frame. Some claimed the video had been tampered with, pointing to a blurred timestamp and what appeared to be edited out sections. They suggested a conspiracy, that someone was being protected. Others focused on her strange hand gestures, attempting to decipher them as a form of sign language or a cryptic message. The theories ranged from the plausible to the paranormal. Given the Cecil Hotel's haunted reputation, many believed a supernatural force was at play. Others suspected she was under the influence of drugs, though her toxicology report would later show no illegal substances. The most prominent theory revolved around her mental health. Elisa was open about her struggles with bipolar disorder and depression, documenting her journey on her personal blog. Many viewers of the video believed her behavior was consistent with a manic or psychotic episode, possibly triggered by not taking her medication correctly. This could explain her paranoia and unusual actions in the elevator. Perhaps, in a state of confusion, she had wandered off and gotten lost. But it didn't explain where she went. For 19 days, the search continued with no new leads. The police were stumped, her family was desperate, and the internet was buzzing with theories. Then, back at the Cecil Hotel, guests began to complain. They reported low water pressure and a strange taste and dark color to the tap water. Some described it as having a sweet, almost sickening taste. On February 19th, a hotel maintenance worker was sent to investigate the large water tanks on the roof of the hotel. To access the tanks, the worker had to take a service elevator, climb a series of fire escapes, and disable an alarm. The tanks themselves were 8 feet tall, and the lids were heavy and difficult to move. When he peered into one of the main systems, he made a horrifying discovery. Floating face up in the water was the body of Eliza Lam. The discovery answered the question of where Elisa was, but it opened up a flood of new, even more perplexing questions. How did she get up to the roof? The rooftop was supposed to be a restricted area, with locked doors and alarms. Hotel staff testified that it was difficult to access, yet there were no signs of forced entry. And even if she did manage to get to the roof, how did she get inside the water tank? The tanks were massive, and climbing one would have been a challenge. More importantly, the lid of the tank she was found in was closed. How could she have gotten inside and then closed the heavy lid from within? The autopsy report added another layer of mystery. The medical examiner ruled her death as an accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing factor. There were no signs of trauma on her body and, as mentioned, no illegal drugs in her system. But this ruling didn't satisfy anyone. The accidental part seemed impossible. Critics of the official report pointed out numerous inconsistencies. If she were experiencing a psychotic episode, would she have been coordinated enough to navigate the complex path to the roof, climb the tank, and get inside? And again, the lid. How could she have closed it herself? It seemed physically impossible. This led to the persistence of foul play theories. Was she murdered? Did someone force her into that tank? If so, who and why would the police rule it an accident? Some speculate that a hotel employee could have been involved, someone with easy access to the roof, but with no evidence of another person being present. These theories remain just that, speculation. The case of Eliza Lamb remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries of our time. Every piece of evidence seems to create more questions than answers. The eerie elevator footage, the impossible circumstances of her death, and the dark history of the hotel all combine to create a story that feels like it was ripped from a horror movie. Was it a tragic accident fueled by a mental health crisis, or was something far more sinister at play? To this day, no one knows for sure what truly happened to Eliza Lamb in her final hours at the Cecil Hotel. The truth, it seems, may have been washed away in that dark water, leaving us with only haunting questions. Imagine a quiet, ordinary night, a family tucked safely in their beds, shielded from a raging storm outside. But what if, in the dead of night, one of them simply vanished? This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's the real, chilling story of 9-year-old Usher Degree. Let's go back to Valentine's Day, 2000, in Shelby, North Carolina. Usher was a bright, happy, and somewhat shy 4th grader. By all accounts, she was a typical kid. She was close with her older brother, O'Brien, and had a loving relationship with her parents, Harold and Iqbala. She was known for being cautious, even scared of dogs and the dark. The idea of her venturing out alone at night seemed completely out of character. The weekend leading up to her disappearance was a normal one. Usher played in a basketball game with her school team. They lost, and she was a bit upset, fouling out of the game. Her parents comforted her, telling her it was just a game. The family spent the rest of the day together, went to church on Sunday, and visited relatives. Everything seemed perfectly fine. On the night of Sunday, February 13th, a fierce storm rolled through Shelby. Rain and high winds battered the area. Around 8 p.m., the power went out. The Degree family lit candles. Usher and O'Brien went to bed around 8:30 p.m. in the room they shared. A little while later, Harold Degree checked on them. Both children were asleep in their beds. He checked again around 2:30 a.m., just before he went to sleep himself, and saw them both still there. But just a few hours later, when Aquila got up around 5:45 a.m. to wake the children for school, Usher's bed was empty. A frantic search of the house began. They checked every room, every closet, under every bed, Asha was gone. Her book bag, packed with a few personal items and some clothes, was also missing. Her parents immediately called 911. The investigation kicked off instantly, but the story only got stranger. Police dogs were brought in, but the heavy rain had washed away any potential scent trail from the house. As news of Asha's disappearance spread, witnesses started coming forward with baffling information. 2 different truck drivers reported seeing a small girl, matching Asha's description, walking along Highway 18 in the pouring rain between 3:30 and 4:15 a.m. She was walking south, away from her home. One driver found it so strange that he circled back 3 times. The last time he saw her, she was still walking, but then she seemed to notice his truck and ran off the road, disappearing into a dark, wooded area. Why would a 9-year-old girl, who was afraid of the dark, pack her bag and walk out into a violent storm in the middle of the night? This question has haunted her family and investigators for over 2 decades. There were no signs of forced entry at the Degree home. Nothing was stolen, and there was no note left behind. It seemed as if Asha had left on her own. But why? The theories began to swirl. One initial thought was that she was trying to run away from home, perhaps upset about the basketball game or some other unknown issue. Her parents insisted this was impossible. They described their home as a happy one and could unthink of any reason Asha would want to leave. And even if she did, why would she choose to do it during a terrifying storm? Another theory centered on a book Asha had been reading for a school assignment, The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleisch. The book is about a prince and his servant who run away from home and have adventures. Could this story have inspired Asha to go on her own adventure? It's a possibility, but it still doesn't explain the timing or the destination. Where was she going? The search for Asha was massive. Hundreds of volunteers joined law enforcement, combing the woods and surrounding areas. Flyers with her picture were everywhere. Her face was on national news. The community rallied around the Degree family, holding vigils and praying for her safe return. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no sign of Asha. Then, a year and a half later, in August 2001, there was a major break in the case, but it only added to the mystery. A construction worker, about 26 miles away from Asha's home in a different county, unearthed a book bag. It was double-wrapped in plastic trash bags and buried. Inside, investigators found items that belonged to Asha Degree. The book bag contained a T-shirt from the band New Kids on the Block and a Dr. Seuss book from her school library. This was confirmed to be her bag. The discovery was chilling. It proved that Asha, or at least her belongings, had traveled a significant distance. The location where the bag was found was in the opposite direction of where she was last seen walking. How did it get there? Who buried it? And why was it wrapped in plastic, as if someone was trying to preserve it? The police considered this a deliberate and calculated act to hide evidence. This discovery shifted the focus of the investigation. The FBI officially announced that they believed Asha's disappearance was likely the result of a crime, not a simple runaway case. The theory now was that Asha might have been lured out of her home. Could she have been communicating with someone online, even though the family didn't have a computer at home at the time? Perhaps she met someone at school or in the neighborhood who convinced her to meet them that night. This leads to the most sinister theory, that Asha was groomed and abducted. Someone may have gained her trust over a period of time, convincing her to pack her bag and leave her home under the guise of an adventure or a secret meeting. This person could have picked her up on the highway after she ran from the truck driver. This would explain why she left willingly, but also why she vanished without a trace. In the years that followed, the case grew cold. Despite thousands of tips, none led to Asha. Her parents have never given up hope. They've kept her room exactly as she left it, a painful and constant reminder of their missing daughter. Every year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, they hold a walk, retracing the path she took along Highway 18, keeping her memory alive and pleading for answers. In 2015, the FBI re-energized the investigation, creating a special task force. In 2018, the FBI released 2 new photos to the public. They were library books from Usher S. Elementary School, McElligott S. Pool by Dr. Seuss, and The Whipping Boy. They asked the public if anyone remembered Usher with these books, or if anyone had found these books since her disappearance. This suggested that perhaps not all of her belongings were in the buried book bag. To this day, the case remains one of America's most perplexing mysteries. Was Usher a runaway who met with a tragic accident in the woods? Was she lured from her home by a predator? Did she get into a car that night? The questions are endless, and the answers are buried in over 2 decades of silence. The story of Usher Degree is a true horror story because it touches on every parent's worst fear. A child, safe at home one moment and gone the next. It's a chilling reminder of the unknown dangers that can lurk even in the most ordinary of lives. For the Degree family, the storm of that Valentine's night has never truly ended. They continue to wait, to hope, and to search for their daughter. The FBI and the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office are still actively investigating this case. They believe someone out there knows what happened to Usher. Someone holds the key to unlocking this mystery and finally bringing peace to her family. If you have any information, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please come forward. You can contact the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office or the FBI. Thank you for listening, and please don't forget Usher Degree. Follow for more stories that deserve to be told. We're rediving into one of the most baffling and chilling missing persons cases of the modern era, the disappearance of Brian Schaefer. This story is so strange, so seemingly impossible, that it feels like a glitch in the Matrix. A man walks into a bar and is never seen again, despite the building being covered by security cameras. Let's unravel the timeline of this true-life mystery. The story begins on the night of Friday, March 31st, 2006, in Columbus, Ohio. Brian Schaefer was a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University. He was smart, ambitious, and on the cusp of a bright future. He had just finished his final exams for the term and was ready to celebrate the start of spring break. He had a trip planned with his girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, to Miami. Life was good for Brian. His mother had sadly passed away just a few weeks earlier from cancer, and this trip was meant to be a much-needed break for both him and Alexis. That evening, Brian met his father, Randy Schaefer, for a steak dinner. Randy later recalled that Brian seemed exhausted from his exams, but was otherwise in good spirits. After dinner, Brian went back to his apartment to get ready for a night out with his friend, William Clint Florence. The plan was to go bar hopping to celebrate the end of the term. Their first stop was the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular bar located on the second floor of the South Campus Gateway complex, right near the university. They arrived around 9 p.m. Brian called his girlfriend, Alexis, around 10 p.m. She was out of town visiting her family, but wanted to check in. They spoke briefly, and he told her he loved her. This would be the last time she ever heard his voice. From the Ugly Tuna, Brian and Clint made their way through several other bars in the area, having a few drinks at each stop. During their pub crawl, Clint and Brian ran into a friend of Clint's named Meredith Reed. Meredith had driven into town and ended up joining them for the rest of the night. The trio eventually decided to head back to where their night started, the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Security cameras are the crucial element of this case, And this is where things take a truly bizarre turn. At exactly 1:15 a.m. on the morning of April 1st, a security camera mounted at the top of the escalator, the main entrance to the bar, captured Brian, Clint, and Meredith riding up to the Ugly Tuna. They entered the bar, and the night continued. Inside, the bar was crowded. The three friends were seen on another camera inside the bar, chatting near the stage where a band was playing. Around 1:55 a.m., Brian was seen on camera talking to two young women just outside the main entrance of the bar for a few moments, then he said goodbye and turned back toward the entrance of the Ugly Tuna. This is the last confirmed, undisputed image of Brian Schaefer ever captured. He walked off camera, seemingly re-entering the bar. He was never seen again. As closing time approached, around 2 a.m., Clint and Meredith started looking for Brian. They couldn't find him inside the packed bar. They called his phone several times, but it went straight to voicemail. Thinking he might have just walked back to his apartment without telling them, which was only a few blocks away, they decided to leave. They waited for him in the lobby area for a little while, but when he didn't show up, they left. The next day, Saturday, April 1st, Brian was scheduled to fly to Miami with his girlfriend, Alexis. When he didn't show up at the airport and didn't answer his phone, Alexis became worried. She tried calling him repeatedly, as did his father, Randy. The calls all went to voicemail. By Sunday, with still no word from Brian, they knew something was seriously wrong. They contacted the Columbus Police Department, and Brian Schaefer was officially reported missing. The police immediately began their investigation, and their first stop was the Ugly Tuna. They reviewed the security camera footage from that night, and what they found, or rather didn't find, was what made this case so perplexing. They saw Brian, Clint, and Meredith entering the bar at 1:15 a.m. They saw Brian talking to the two women outside at 1:55 a.m., and then turning back towards the bar, but after that moment, he vanished. The police meticulously reviewed every second of footage from every camera in and around the building. While the main entrance and exit was an escalator, there was another service exit. This door, however, was not generally used by the public and opened into a messy construction area at the time. A camera was also pointed at this exit, and it showed no one leaving through it that night. So, let's recap the impossibility of the situation. Brian is clearly seen on camera entering the bar. The only two known exits were both monitored by cameras. And yet, there is no footage of Brian Schaefer ever leaving the Ugly Tuna Skaluna. It's as if he walked into the building and simply evaporated into thin air. Police interviewed everyone. They talked to Clint and Meredith, who both said they had no idea what happened to Brian. They questioned the two women Brian was seen speaking with outside the bar. They were quickly identified and cleared, stating they had a brief, friendly chat and nothing more. Every employee working that night was interviewed. Every patron they could identify was questioned. No one remembered seeing anything unusual. No fights, no arguments, no sign of distress from Brian. Investigators considered every possibility. Did Brian leave with someone, intentionally avoiding the cameras? This seems highly unlikely. The area was complex, but all paths leading away from the bar would have eventually crossed the view of some other security camera in the district, and none of them showed Brian. Could he have changed his clothes or put on a disguise? Police thought of this, too. They scanned the footage for anyone who remotely matched Brian's height and build, regardless of what they were wearing. Nothing. The theory that he left through the service exit was thoroughly explored. This exit led to a chaotic construction site. Police brought in search dogs, but the area was so contaminated with different scents and debris that the dogs couldn't pick up a reliable trail. Furthermore, The camera monitoring that exit showed no activity. Even if he had somehow managed to sneak past the camera, navigating the treacherous construction zone in the dark, likely intoxicated, without injury or being seen, seems incredibly improbable. Another theory was that Brian, wanting to disappear and start a new life, had planned this. His mother's recent death had hit him hard. Maybe the pressure of medical school was too much. But this theory doesn't hold up well under scrutiny. He was about to go on vacation with the woman he loved and planned to propose to. His bank accounts and credit cards were never touched after that night. His car was still parked at his apartment. He left his glasses behind. Why would someone meticulously plan a disappearance but leave behind all their money and transportation? It just doesn't add up. The investigation continued for months, then years. Brian's father, Randy, was relentless in his search for his son. He hired a private investigator and worked tirelessly with law enforcement. Tragically, in 2008, Randy Schaefer was killed in a freak accident when a tree fell on him during a windstorm. He died without ever knowing what happened to his only child. The search for Brian is now carried on by his brother and a dedicated community of online sleuths. One detail that has always been a point of contention is Clint Florence's behavior. While he initially cooperated with police, he later refused to take a polygraph test and secured a lawyer. Meredith Reed, on the other hand, did take a polygraph and passed. Many people find Clint's refusal to take the test suspicious. However, it's important to remember that police have stated he is not a suspect. Refusing a polygraph isn't an admission of guilt. It can be a decision made on legal advice. Still, for many following the case, it remains a troubling question mark. What does he know, if anything, that he isn't sharing? Over the years, there have been numerous alleged sightings and tips. From possible sightings in Sweden to a photo of a man in Mexico who bore a striking resemblance to Brian. All of these leads have been investigated and have unfortunately led to dead ends. The most persistent mystery remains the camera footage. How can a man walk into a building and not walk out when all the exits are being filmed? There are fringe theories, of course. Some suggest he was a victim of foul play inside the bar, and his body was somehow removed without being detected. But removing a body from a crowded second-story bar past security cameras seems like something out of a Hollywood movie, not real life. Others wonder if there was a secret exit, an unmonitored door or passage that no one knew about. The building's owners and police have repeatedly said this is not the case. Today, nearly 2 decades later, the disappearance of Brian Schaefer remains one of America's most haunting cold cases. He is a man who exists on camera at 1:55 a.m. and then ceases to exist. His case is a testament to the fact that even in our modern world of constant surveillance, a person can still vanish without a trace. What do you think happened to Brian Schaefer? Was it a planned disappearance? Was he a victim of a crime of opportunity? Or is there a simple, logical explanation that everyone has somehow missed? Let me know your theories in the comments below. This case is a puzzle with a crucial piece missing, and perhaps with enough eyes on it, that piece can one day be found. The morning of April 18, 2016, dawned like any other in Midlothian, a quiet suburb of Dallas, Texas. But for Terry Missy Bevers, a 45-year-old fitness instructor and devoted mother of 3, it would be her last. Missy was a beloved figure in her community, known for her infectious energy and passion for helping others achieve their fitness goals. She was scheduled to lead a 5 a.m. boot camp class at the Creekside Church of Christ. Her students started arriving, expecting to be greeted by Missy's usual bright smile and motivating words. Instead, they found the church eerily silent. A student discovered broken glass near a side door and, upon entering, made a horrifying discovery that would shatter the peace of their small town forever. Inside the church, Missy Bevers was found unresponsive. She had suffered multiple puncture wounds to her head and chest. Emergency services were called immediately, but it was too late. Missy was pronounced dead at the scene. The community was left in shock. Who would want to harm a woman described by everyone as kind, caring, and full of life? As police descended on the church, they quickly realized this was no random act of violence that had gone wrong. The scene was bizarre and deeply unsettling. The initial investigation uncovered one of the most puzzling pieces of evidence in modern true crime history. Security camera footage from inside the church. The motion-activated cameras captured a figure dressed from head to toe in what appeared to be SWAT-style tactical gear, walking through the hallways of the church long before Missy even arrived. The person's height was estimated to be between 5'2" and 5'8". They wore a heavy helmet, a vest with the word police on it, gloves and pants. Every inch of their body was covered, making it impossible to determine their gender, age, or race. This mysterious figure moved with a strange, almost clumsy gait, swinging a hammer and methodically opening doors, breaking windows, and rummaging through offices. It looked like a burglary, but very little of value was actually taken. The person seemed to be searching for something or someone. The footage showed the unknown individual had been inside the church for over 30 minutes before. Missy entered at around 4:20 a.m. to set up for her class. The cameras, unfortunately, did not capture the moment of the attack itself, but the implication was chilling. This person, in tactical gear, was lying in wait. The attack on Missy was deliberate. The question that stumped investigators and terrified the public was, why? What motive could there be for such a brutal and seemingly premeditated murder? The strange attire, the odd behavior, none of it made sense. Police released the footage to the public, hoping someone would recognize the suspect's distinctive walk or build. The video went viral, and the image of the person in the police gear became an infamous symbol of this unsolved case. As investigators dug into Missy's life, they searched for anyone who might have held a grudge against her. By all accounts, she was a popular and well-liked person. However, like any life, hers was not without its complexities. It emerged that Missy and her husband, Brandon Bevers, were experiencing financial and marital problems. Brandon was out of town on a fishing trip in Mississippi at the time of the murder, giving him what seemed like a solid alibi. But text messages found on Missy's phone revealed a more troubled picture. She had been exchanging intimate messages with other men. One message, sent just days before her death, was particularly concerning. She wrote, "I'm not talking about a bad day. I'm talking about a life-changing event that will either make or break me." What was she referring to? The investigation turned to these extramarital communications. Was a jealous lover or a spurned admirer involved? Police looked into several men, but each lead eventually went cold. There was also speculation about a series of creepy and unsettling messages Missy had received on LinkedIn from an unknown man a few days before her death. The messages were professional but persistent, and something about them made Missy uneasy. However, police were never able to identify the sender or determine if the messages were connected to her murder. The case was a labyrinth of dead ends. The focus then shifted back to the family. Missy's father-in-law, Randy Bevers, came under scrutiny. Just before the murder, he had brought a blood-stained shirt to a dry cleaner. He claimed the blood was from a chihuahua his dog had attacked. Forensics confirmed the blood was indeed from a dog, and Randy was cleared. But the incident added another layer of strangeness to an already bizarre case. The police were running out of suspects and leads. The mysterious figure in the surveillance video remained the central and most frustrating piece of the puzzle. Experts analyzed the suspect's walk, trying to determine if it was a man or a woman. Some believed the gait was feminine, pointing to the way the person's feet turned outward. Others argued that the heavy tactical gear could make anyone walk awkwardly. The suspect's height range was also broad, fitting a large portion of the population. The police vest worn by the suspect was another point of interest. It looked authentic, but it could have been purchased online or at a surplus store. The ambiguity of the suspect's identity was maddening. They were a ghost, a phantom who appeared on camera, committed a horrific crime, and vanished without a trace. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence found outside the church was a vehicle captured on surveillance footage from a nearby business just before 2 a.m. on the morning of the murder. A light-colored Nissan Altima was seen pulling into the parking lot of a sporting goods store, lingering for a few minutes, and then driving away slowly. The car's behavior was suspicious. Circling the area near the church, police released images of the car, asking for the public's help in identifying the driver. But like the figure in the tactical gear, the owner of this car has never been found. Was this the killer's vehicle? It's a question that remains unanswered. Years have passed since Missy Bevers was taken from her family and her community. The case has been featured on numerous true crime shows and podcasts. Armchair detectives across the internet have pored over every detail, every frame of the surveillance video, proposing countless theories. Some believe the killer was a woman disguised as a man, perhaps a romantic rival. Others think it was a professional hit, though the motive for that is unclear. Some even speculate it could have been a teenager or someone familiar with the church's layout. Despite the intense media attention and a reward that climbed to over $50,000, no one has ever been arrested for Missy's murder. The case of Missy Bevers is a chilling reminder that evil can strike in the most unexpected places. A church, a place of sanctuary, became a crime scene. A beloved fitness instructor, a pillar of her community, was targeted in a calculated and brutal attack. The image of the killer, clad in tactical gear and walking with that unforgettable strange gait, is burned into the memory of anyone who has followed this case. It's a haunting mystery that leaves us with more questions than answers. Who was this person? And why did they target Missy? Was it about a personal vendetta, a secret she knew, or something else entirely? The silence from law enforcement in recent years suggests the trail has gone cold, but her family and the community of Midlothian still hold out hope for justice. They wait for the day the ghost in the hallway is finally unmasked. It was a cold January morning in Orlando, Florida. Back in 2006, 24-year-old Jennifer Kess, a successful finance manager, was living the life she'd always dreamed of. She had a great job, a loving boyfriend, and a beautiful new condo. Everything was perfect. But on Tuesday, January 24th, that perfect life vanished into thin air. Jennifer was known for her reliability. She spoke to her family and her boyfriend, Rob Allen, every single day. So when she failed to show up for work that Tuesday morning, alarm bells immediately started ringing. Her boss called her parents, Drew and Joyce Kess, who then called Rob. None of them could reach her. A sense of dread began to creep in. Rob, who lived 3 hours away, started the long drive to Orlando, while Jennifer's parents also headed to her condo. Her brother Logan went ahead to check on her. When Logan arrived at the Mosaic at Millenia Condos, he found nothing out of the ordinary. Her car was gone from its usual spot, which at first suggested she had simply gone to work. But inside her apartment, things felt off. A wet towel lay on the bathroom floor, her pajamas were on the bed, and her makeup was laid out on the counter. It looked as if she had started her morning routine but never finished it. Her purse, keys, and phone were missing, but everything else, including her passport and valuables, was still there. It was as if she had just stepped out for a moment and never came back. Police were called, and a full-scale investigation began. Her family and friends immediately organized massive search parties, plastering her face on flyers all over the city. The media picked up the story, and Jennifer's bright, smiling face was soon everywhere. The entire community rallied together, desperate for any sign of the missing young woman. Her parents, Drew and Joyce, became fixtures on national television, their faces etched with a pain that no parent should ever have to endure, pleading for their daughter's safe return. 2 days later, on January 26th, there was a break in the case, or so it seemed. A resident at another apartment complex, about a mile away from Jennifer's home, noticed her black Chevy Malibu parked in a visitor's spot. The resident had seen news reports about the car and called the police. Hope surged through everyone involved. Maybe this would lead them to Jennifer. Forensic teams swarmed the car, but it offered more questions than answers. There was no sign of a struggle. No blood, no DNA, no fingerprints other than Jennifer's. The driver's seat was pushed back further than Jennifer, who was 5'8", would have needed. The only thing of value found inside was a DVD player, but her briefcase, phone, purse, and iPod were all gone. It was eerily clean, as if someone had intentionally wiped it down. But the most significant clue came from the apartment complex where the car was found. It had surveillance cameras. Police reviewed the footage and found something truly chilling. A grainy, low-resolution video captured a person parking Jennifer's car at approximately noon on the day she disappeared. The person then got out, waited about 30 seconds, and walked away. This person of interest, as they came to be known, became the central figure in the mystery. But the video was infuriatingly obscure. The person's face was completely blocked by the black metal bars of the security fence in every single frame. You could see their clothing, light-colored pants and a shirt, but their gender, race, and age were impossible to determine. They were a ghost, a phantom who had driven Jennifer's car and then simply walked away. Their identity hidden by a cruel twist of fate and a poorly placed fence. Investigators estimated their height to be between 5'3" and 5'5". The police released the footage to the public, hoping someone, anyone, might recognize the person's walk or their clothes. The image of this shadowy figure became synonymous with Jennifer's case. Experts from the FBI and even NASA were brought in to try and enhance the video, to pull a clear image from the grainy pixels, but it was no use. The fence posts had done their job too well, obscuring the face in every critical shot. As the investigation continued, police explored every possible lead. They looked into Jennifer's work life. She had recently been promoted to a finance manager position at Central Florida Investments, the company that owned Westgate Resorts. This meant she was managing a large team, some of whom were older and had been with the company longer than she had. Had there been any jealousy or resentment? Her colleagues described her as a fair and respected boss, and no solid leads emerged from her workplace. They also looked into the construction workers who were renovating the condo complex where Jennifer lived. At the time of her disappearance, many of the condos were unoccupied, and workers had access to the units. Jennifer had told her family she sometimes felt uncomfortable with the workers making comments to her. Police interviewed many of them, some of whom were undocumented workers, which made the process difficult. But again, no concrete evidence linked any of them to her disappearance. Then there was her personal life. Her relationship with her boyfriend, Rob, was described as happy and stable. They had just returned from a vacation in St. Croix a few days before she went missing. He was fully cooperative with police and had a solid alibi, being 3 hours away at the time she vanished. They also investigated her ex-boyfriends and other acquaintances, but each lead turned into a dead end. The timeline of her disappearance was frustratingly vague. The last confirmed contact was a phone call with Rob around 10 p.m. on Monday, January 23rd. After that, she simply ceased to exist. The prevailing theory among investigators is that Jennifer was abducted sometime between 10 p.m. that Monday night and 7:30 a.m. the next morning, likely as she was leaving for work. They believe the abductor forced her out of her condo and into her own car. The fact that there were no signs of forced entry at her apartment suggests she might have opened the door for someone she knew, or she was ambushed in the parking lot. The person seen driving her car is believed to be the abductor, who then disposed of the vehicle a mile away. Years have passed since that January morning. The case has grown cold, but Jennifer's family has never given up hope. Drew and Joyce Kess have become fierce advocates, tirelessly working to keep their daughter's story in the public eye. They've managed the case themselves, hiring private investigators and pushing for new laws to help families of missing persons. Their strength and determination are nothing short of remarkable. In 2018, frustrated with the lack of progress, the Kess family sued the Orlando Police Department to gain access to the case files. After a long legal battle, they received over 16,000 pages of documents and hours of audio and video evidence. They now lead the investigation themselves, combing through every detail, hoping to find the one clue that everyone else missed. They believe the answer is in those files. The case of Jennifer Kess is a haunting reminder of how quickly a life can be upended. It's a story with a gaping hole at its center, a void left by a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. The grainy image of the person walking away from her car remains one of the most frustrating and tantalizing clues in modern true crime history. Who was this person? And what did they do to Jennifer? The family continues to ask for the public's help. Someone, somewhere, knows something. Even the smallest piece of information could be the key that finally unlocks this devastating mystery. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jennifer Kess, please contact the Kess family's tip line or the appropriate authorities. Let's help bring Jennifer home. Thank you for watching.